Alright, let's cut the BS. I dare to say what most of the developers out there won't say. Either you're building a game with big investment rounds or making games as a solo game developer. Making your first successful game is a luck-based process. There you have it. Good designs and art style and such will help you, most definitely, but it has a little to do with the success of your game. Even if you happen to make that successful game, you will struggle with the upcoming pain points I'll open up in this video if you don't take those into account. So there are at least two things which will help you to take concrete steps towards your first successful game. So let's take a look into those. The number one thing is learn the data. So in today's market, it boils down to your ability to gather and understand data and making decisions depending on your findings and your hypotheses from it. I've heard a lot of people say that they do gather data, but they don't really use it for their decision making. Why? Because it's hard to understand. The main reason why it's hard to understand is because most of the developers don't set clear goals, which metrics they are trying to improve in the first place. They find themselves doing random things and looking at their revenue only, which does not seem to be going up. It's a long road to learn to use the data. It includes a lot of bottlenecks and before you can take even a glimpse looking at the revenue of your company. You'll need to understand the process for someone to get interested in your creations, even in theory. Where do they discover your products? How do they get there? Why would they be interested in your creations rather than someone else's? I know these may sound rather obvious steps for many people out there, but for some reason many developers tend to skip this part and go straight to the buy my product type of marketing mode. There were 19,000 games released on Steam alone on year 2024. That means over 1,500 games released per month. So yeah, there is a lot of noise for the players to get interested in something. Building your marketing plan only to lean into the part like good product, buy it now, does not make it stand out in any way. You'll be just one of those 1,500 developers shouting out loud each month. So discovering the best methods for your marketing strategy is a process itself. It includes a lot of tests, failures, and repeats. No one can tell you what is the best method for a game to find its audience. Sure, there will be a lot of theories how it can be done, but no one knows for sure. If you don't yet have a successful game in your backlog, the good part is that you're allowed to do very bold moves with your tests and your marketing as an example. At that point, it's all about imagination and your resources and your ability to execute those. So in a nutshell, start marketing early, make a plan for multiple different marketing strategies and execute those. And then start observing the data and learning from it. When you see something that has worked better than the previous methods, focus into that and trust the data because it's already telling you what is the best choice, but you may want to skip that in some way because you just feel that maybe we could do something like that. So dig deeper into the reason why it worked and make more iterations out of that. Once you've gone through those iterations and tested them, you most likely have another best performant operation which you can focus on. So there is no silver bullet in marketing, it's just trials and errors. Good thing is that you can see which of those trials has the best performance, as long as you are observing the data and learning from it. So once you've grasped that process, the second point of mine steps into play. Number 2, the sustainability. Your first game will most likely be a flop. That's okay, since your second game will be that most likely as well. It's kind of a scripted process, which is almost inevitable to happen. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't try your best in these releases, but it's just better to start building games with this ideology. It helps you to not only prepare to build more games after your current project, but also help you to not fall too much in love with your current one. And remember, each of these releases produce data, and you can or maybe you even should use when planning your next project. So when you repeat this process, it's much easier to understand the ongoing markets and how they evolve rather than looking at the guide videos back from the 2010, how to make games, how to make successful games and such. So you have your actual own data to look at. So build your own guide with the data you gather. Don't just gather it and learn it and kind of make your decisions out from the data that you obtain during your releases. So the timeless question now is that how do I make games game after game without getting low to zero sales out of it? And that's a big question obviously to take. But it's still the question you should make a plan for, since that is the most obvious outcome for most of the developers out there. And this is not my opinion, it's just the numbers, how many games get successful in the markets. So in case you're dreaming of having your own sustainable game company, you need to make a plan how you deliver those games with very low profits for multiple years even. There are dozens of different ways to accomplish this, but I'll just open a couple of examples here. The number one is publisher deals. Make fast concepts and prototypes which fit into the portfolio of multiple different publishers that have pretty much similar games released, and kind of make that design that fits into those portfolios of those publishers. But before you can convince a publisher, you need some kind of a track record. Your track record is the games you've published before. This one is up to you to manage because it's very hard to get a publisher convinced to actually fund your project if you don't have any proven track record that you can actually make games. You're totally unknown for those given publishers. It's too risky. The first game, or maybe even a couple of your first games, needs to be more or less self-funded. Create it in your spare time or use your savings or whatever is your best suitable method to do that. But that's on you. Remember that you should still introduce these first projects to potential publishers, even though the deal is very hard to get signed. This will not only help you to understand the process of the publishers, but also the design, how to design games that actually fit into the portfolios of those given publishers. Now to the second and even the final topic of this given video example, kind of how you deliver games with low or no profits from your previous sales releases. Optimize the development process. This one is something you want to do whether you have the funding or not, but especially if your game is developed out of your own pocket. You want the games to be completed fast from the design table to the storefront. And because of this, your games cannot be the ultimate dreams of yours. They will be small and something you can actually deliver in a short period of time. Small game doesn't necessarily mean a bad quality game. The quality of the game can and should be top-notch, obviously, but the amount of gameplay is rather limited, or should be limited. And because the amount of gameplay obviously affects the pricing of the game as well, since, nowadays many players obviously equals the amount of gameplay to the price of the game. It's much better to create 1 to 2 hours of impactful experience for the player rather than 100 hours of content that no one will actually play through. And it's much easier to add content into a game that is getting positive feedback than kind of take back all those years of development for that 100 hours of content. So start small. If you're able to optimize the development process of the game, it's easier to have small cash flow projects on the side. If each of your projects is a massive scale, you'll never finish those, and it can take ages to get that data I mentioned previously as well. So maybe that helps. Maybe there's kind of a couple of points, either for the publisher road or find your own optimized way to build games and such. But I could keep on going this for hours, so it's better to split these into multiple videos. So let's start wrapping this up. Please go ahead and subscribe to my channel, since I will be sharing a lot more from my solo game development journey here on YouTube, but also my Patreon is open, just re-released after some time of silence. But now there's gonna be more kind of a backstage content, if I may say, and kind of a supporter-only podcasts and behind-the-scenes materials and such. So please go ahead, check my Patreon account, and hope to see you supporting there. So thank you very much for your time, and have a great rest of the week. Cheers, thank you, and bye-bye.